the Philharmonic is one. It's a kind of a fixture in the greater Hazleton area. It's been around. This version of it has been around since 1954. It started actually this generation started in a little patch town, which people might recognize. It's called Latimer Mines. It's northeast of here, from Hazleton a little bit. And at that time, there was a Roman Catholic priest who had spent about 8 years in the Hazleton area from about 1942 to 1950. His name was Father Joe Ferrara. And he left the area. The diocese moved him out of the area for about 2 or 3 years. And then they brought him back and they gave him this little patch town and gave him the assignment of taking care of a little Catholic church in Latimer, and then also another one across what we used to call the strippings in Pardeesville. So he took care of both parishes at the time. And one of the first things that he did was he set up a music program whereby he taught everybody that he could get his hands on, he taught them to sing. And when he was finished building that took about a year and a half or so. And when he got finished building that, his first concert was a concert of 100 voices and took place at what used to be the original Hazel Township Auditorium, because that was the only place that was big enough to handle that many voices. Eventually, the number of voices fell off, but in the meantime, he started developing. He was himself a guitar virtuoso. He had received classical training in New York before he went into the seminary, and he also had little little band things while he was in the seminary. But he was a good musician, and because he was a good musician, he was able to hand train a lot of musicians. I was one who was hand trained. I started my actual career, I guess, when I was about 8 or 9 years old. I guess I was in 4th grade or so when he started to teach the parishioners, the youngest ones, how to play musical instruments. My original first instrument was a trumpet. That's where I started with him. And from that point on, I have been a member of the Philharmonic ever since then. So the Philharmonic began in around 1954 when he was stationed in Latimer. It continued through in the Hazleton area. I believe it was about 1985 or so when he retired as the pastor of Latimer Church, St. Mary's. And then he just continued on. He built a string program. And during those years, he also had a summer program, which was, in fact, it is the current site of Furwood. It used to be called Furwood Music Camp. I think the name is still the same. Now, the Can-Do Foundation has basically taken over It's down in Drums, and they're using it. They've expanded on what its capability was, but for 20 years or more, we operated the camp, and it was a summer music program. At its height, it used to go on for 5 weeks, and we started with. He started a music program in almost all of the Hazleton parochial schools. At one point, there were about 5 or 6 of them. He used to go right to the schools and teach music 1st through 8th grade, and thereby helped develop the youngsters into musicians, so that by the time they reached about 3rd or 4th grade, they were ready to venture into an instrument, usually a string instrument. That was his dream, to develop a Philharmonic orchestra. And then that eventually grew, and throughout that 20 years, the Philharmonic Orchestra came into existence.
I don't have the long history that everybody else does here. I play with a lot of other local bands, but about right before the pandemic, Maestro Lagana invited me. He said, "Would you like to come and sit in with the big band?" And I was very honored, because I was like, oh, wow, this is the big time for me. And I'm just loving it. Absolutely love playing with them. So I'm not here that long. I'm here about 3 years, but I've been playing trombone since I was 10. So I have a lot of years as a musician in the Hazleton area. First of all, music is just wonderful, and we sort of do concerts that's a little bit classical, a little bit pops, so I think it's really open to the general listening public. But also, if you played in the past, I didn't play for years when my kids were little, And I took the horn out of the case, and it's just so much fun. It's so relaxing. It's good for the mind. It's very good to keep you sharp. And it's a wonderful group of people, too. That's the other thing.
I started out with sleigh bells for a Christmas concert, and then I played a little bit of timpani, and then it just grew on from there. Well, it's actually kind of a cool experience to actually do concerts and stuff like that. I actually told my friends yet. That's why.
Yeah, it's like nobody does it, so it's like
Yeah, nobody in my class does it at all.
you guys kind of got roped into it, didn't you?
Yeah, kind of got roped into it. Yeah.